when it comes to the current situation we live in and the current world that we live in,
Mm.
social media undoubtedly is going to be
Mm.
playing a role in this. Has it, from your perspective, created an uptick in cases of body dysmorphic disorder?
Probably. I think, um, we don't know that for certain, but, I think it makes a lot of sense that certain forms of social media, right? For example, what we call image-centric, uh, f forms of social media that focus on how people look and that present idealized and often unattainable, images of supposed perfection and appearance, uh, types of social media that promote cosmetic procedures, even for people who are already very attractive, that these probably become one more can become one more risk factor for people who are probably already at risk of getting it based on their genetic inheritance and perhaps other life experiences. Again, we can't say social media is the cause because BDD's been around long before social media ever developed.
Sure.
But I think, yeah, I think it can probably for some people, it can, it makes sense that it would play a role because it's become such a powerful, pervasive force in our society, and some of it is so appearance focused and often gives the message that you don't look good enough. You have to look better. You have to fix yourself. And when you hear those messages and keep seeing those messages, it's hard to think it doesn't have an effect. And I know for patients I treat who have body dysmorphic disorder, that for many of them, social media can make involvement in certain forms of it can make their BDD much worse. So, and cause them to, suffer more and be more obsessed with these perceived imperfections and how they look. And so, one of the things we sometimes do in therapy is patients will decide, I'm going to, close this account because all it does is make me feel bad and obsess more about how I look. And it's kinda toxic for me to be looking at this stuff and spending so much of my time doing it. So, some people will decide that's a good idea for them, and it often is actually.
From my world of sport and performance, I've seen, again, still linked with perfectionism, because I just think in general, I see a more perfectionistic world. Very hard to say whether, because I'm studying it, whether I'm going into it with slightly, I'm finding what I'm looking for. But I would say as a general, like, more people are associating with sort of the symptoms and elements of perfectionism. And one of them being this socially prescribed perfectionism, which is sort of outside external forces providing that higher standard, or other people telling you that you need to be at a certain standard. And so in the sport world, you see a lot of young people chasing this sort of unrealistic expectation, a really high standard. But from a body image point of view and a body awareness point of view, literally last night I was out on the seafront, and here in the UK we've literally just ticked over the end of GCSEs, which is our 16-year-olds finish their exams at school.
Mhm.
So they've all exited the schools and they're all out on the streets and partying. And out on the seafront where I live here in the south of England, there were hundreds of kids out, and there's police around sort of monitoring them, making sure they're staying in shape, like they're fine. And the amount of young girls, I would say, that you could tell was so image conscious
Yes, yes.
about. And I was luckily with a friend, and I said, "Do you think this is what it if this doesn't look like what it was like for us
Right.
18, 20 years ago? This
Yeah.
was not what it was like." And I can only think of really the addition of social media, the addition of more imagery, the propelling of these influencers and icons
Yes.
of the image that they are presenting and showing. And again, as we know, that is not always the truth. An image that is not truthful, an image that is not real, that has been changed by some form of filter or technology, that has clearly had, you're sort of seeing this, the rubber is meeting the road where these kids are standing, as the change, and they're all trying to look either the same or outdo the one next to them.
Yes, I see something similar here in the US, and it's sad. You know, they seem so much more appearance focused, than when I was growing up here and, posing for selfies and putting on even more makeup out in public. And, it's, um, it's disheartening because I think it almost certainly, it can increase anxiety about how you look. It can, propel people to get cosmetic procedures, which sometimes end up looking very strange and, can involve risks, medically, psychologically. So, we know cosmetic surgery procedures are increasing also and becoming fairly mainstream. And, I feel we're losing, what happened to other aspects of ourselves, like
Mm.
hopefully a lot of people have still held on to that, but what else makes you who you are? It's not just, how your nose looks or, whether your hair looks perfect. It's so much more than that. And your personality traits, your values, your talents, etc. And I worry that the basis of self-esteem is becoming very narrowed for a lot of people, and it has become very focused on physical appearance. And then some of the social media world just amplifies that.
If you enjoyed that clip with Katharine and you want to watch the full episode, all you have to do is click around about here.